Hello everybody and welcome to a train simulator video. Today we shall be driving a Mk4 driving van trailer non-stop from Peterborough to London King's Cross. So the first thing we need to do is turn off the pause menu. Then we're going to enter the cab and we're going to open the doors with T. Next we're going to put the train into gear by pressing Shift and W to turn the master key first. Then W again to put the train into gear. Cancel the automatic warning system with Q. I'll put the train into neutral gear. I'll also turn on the vigilance device with Control D, and this will be an alarm that sounds every 60 seconds and we need to respond to it with E. Next thing I need to do is set up the train's headlights, so I need to press J to turn on the marker lights, K to turn off the tail lights, and H to turn on the daytime running lights. If we quickly move outside the train again, we'll see that the headlights are set up in the correct position, and now we can enter the cab. Now we do have a bit of a wait time here at Peterborough, so I'm just going to press Control Shift and 5 and this will accelerate the time in the scenario, and this is enabled using the enable async keys command, which you can enter into the Steam launch options in the same way that you can also edit the field of view for Train Simulator. So the signal ahead is now displaying the green aspect, so I can now turn off the driver reminder appliance. It's just reversed back to red for some reason. So it's now time for us to depart now. We have just set the train's cruise control to 25 miles an hour. The speed limit is just increased up to 105 miles an hour, so I'm just going to increase the cruise control up to that speed now. And as you can see, we're now accelerating up to 105 miles an hour. In fact, after the next signal, the speed will further increase to 115 miles an hour. The maximum speed on the East Coast Main Line is 125 miles an hour, and that will be the maximum achievable speed for the journey today. I'm just going to cut the power as we've just passed a Morpeth board for a drop in the speed down to 100 miles an hour. So I'll just put a step-on brake application on. I'm also going to drop the speed set down to 105 miles an hour. As it will increase up to that speed after the next signal. Just passed a class 321 electric multiple unit. And the speed limit is now increased to 125 miles an hour, so I'm just going to increase the speed set for that now. And the train has just dropped power there as we've passed through a neutral section. By default there are no active neutral sections on the East Coast Main Line. However, they do work with the Armstrong Powerhouse Enhanced Class 91 via special markers developed by Armstrong Powerhouse for the purpose of this scenario. The scenario we are playing today also comes with the Class 91 Enhancement Pack by Armstrong Powerhouse. As you've probably just noticed on the HUD, the game is penalising us for speeding. This is a general problem with Train Simulator. For whatever reason, I think it's just due to the way that everything's been coded. The game is penalising us for going above 125. For running at 125. For running at line speed. I think it's just to do with the East Coast Main Line. I know on the Southeastern High Speed route, which is also available, the game doesn't penalise you for going above 125 miles an hour. Another thing that you'll probably have also noticed about the HUD is that we apparently have 21 miles to go to King's Cross. This is in fact incorrect. We have about, I think it's 75 odd, 80 miles from Peterborough to King's Cross. And it's not a bug with Train Simulator. This isn't a problem with Train Simulator. It's because this particular scenario has hidden instructions, and the mileage counter won't actually start counting down until we've passed through the Welling area. The diesel train that just passed us a minute ago was a Class 180 Adelante diesel multiple unit. We're now passing, I believe, Huntington Station, which is the first stop after Peterborough, heading towards London. And the train waiting in the platform there was a Class 365 networker. There are two things we need to look out for in this scenario. The first thing is a temporary speed restriction of 80 miles an hour, which comes into force just south of St Neots station, which is the next station that we shall pass through. So once we approach St Neots, I'll have to start reducing the train speed down accordingly, because it does take the Class 91 quite a while to slow down from 125 miles an hour. I think to come to a complete stop from this speed, I think it's about the length of 4 football pitches or something like that. In fact, I'm just going to start slowing down now for a drop down to 120 miles an hour. Just going to put the speed set down to there. We can now increase our speed back up to 125 miles an hour. And we're now passing through St Neots, so I'm just going to start slowing down in anticipation for this 80 miles an hour speed restriction. and we're now down at 80 miles an hour. I'm not going to change the speed set as it's only as the section of track that the limit applies to is actually quite short, so I'll just leave it set to 125. We're also just passing through neutral section here. And now that we've regained power, I'm going to apply the power again to the train. And we've just passed the T sign, which marks the termination of the 80 miles an hour speed limit. However, the train cannot go back up to line speed until the rear of the train has passed the speed board. And in fact, the speed has just gone back up to 125 mph, so we can now speed back up. So it's been quite a while since I last did a train simulator video. This is mainly because about a month ago the computer I was using packed up on me, and so I had to order a brand new computer to replace it. The new PC arrived about a couple of weeks ago from the time of this recording, so it's only about a couple of weeks old, and I custom ordered it from PC Specialist, which is where I got the last one from. The last one lasted me about 6 years, so for a computer these days I think that's a pretty good lifespan. This new machine is much powerful and much faster than the old one. I have an Intel i5-8600 processor. I also have an Asus Micro ATX motherboard in it, an NVIDIA 3GB 1060 graphics card, and also 2 hard drives. The first hard drive is a 128GB solid state hard drive, which I have Windows 10 installed on. And then the secondary hard drive is a 2TB Seagate FireCuda, which is a hybrid drive, a cross between a mechanical hard drive and a solid state hard drive. In terms of speed, it's not as fast as a true SSD, but it's faster than a mechanical hard drive. So at the moment I'm very happy with my new setup. I've also changed the editing software that I used. For the past few years I've been having the pleasure of using Cyberlink Power Director, but with the new machine I thought it was time for a change, and I've decided I've changed the editor to Vegas Movie Studio, which is now produced by Magix, who brought the software rights from Sony, so it's in its 15th version now, and I have the just the platinum version of Movie Studio. So, and it's just made fit, and in terms of getting things edited, it's made things a hell of a lot easier. It's obvious I've installed it onto my hard drive, so it operates onto my SSD, so it runs a lot faster and smoother as well, and it's just a bit more flexible in terms of editing. There's also far more rendering options as well with Vegas, and I also got Vegas on the basis that it also came with DVD Architect, which is a semi-pro DVD Blu-ray authoring software, which is what I also really wanted, so it's worked out quite well in that regard. I'm now going to just slow down the train as we've just passed through Owlsley station, as I believe that we are due a signal check just before Hitchin. So I know you really shouldn't slow down in anticipation of a signal that you know is going, that you might know is going to be red. But it's just after playing this scenario a number of times. But I've learnt to slow down for it. So in real life you wouldn't actually do this, but because I've played this scenario a number of times, I know that the signal's going to be red. So I'm not too sure which signal it is, but I think it's just before Hitchin. It's just on the outskirts. And the signalling headways are, as we get closer to London, the signalling headways are getting closer as well. And the signal is now displaying a double yellow aspect. So I'm going to slow the train right down now. There's actually a neutral section just before this red signal as well, so I'll need to have the power off anyway. I've just slowed the train down to 20 miles an hour for the TPWS grid just outside the signal. The East Coast Main Line has active TPWS, but I can't remember if the Class 91 actually has is scripted to work with TPWS. And here we are, so I'll just put the train into neutral and apply the driver reminder appliance. When you first play this scenario, this particular signal can take you by surprise, so it's always best to be prepared. And it's just reverted to a green aspect, so we can now continue on our way again. So as you just probably just witnessed, we nearly got overtaken by the train we just overtook a few minutes ago. As you can probably hear, the Mk4 driving van trailer doesn't really have any engine sounds. The Mk4 DVT is a non-powered unit, and it actually gets its power from the Class 91 electric locomotive, which is at the rear of the train. And this is through a system called time division multiplex. Sounds like something out of a science fiction film. But basically it works through special cables which travel through the Mk4 coaching stock, which were developed around, I think, 1984-1985, though there were some delays in introducing the Mk4 stock. So as a stopgap, they ingeniously managed to modify some Class 43 HSTs to work with some older Mark III coaching stock and work with the Class 91s, and the HSTs worked as surrogate DVTs, and you can easily tell which HSTs were modified just by simply checking for if it has any buffers on. In fact, I think up until quite recently, buffered HSTs were actually still a sight on the East Coast Main Line with Grand Central trains. I think London North Eastern still actually have some buffered HSTs in there, fleet as well. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I definitely know Grand Central had one or two of the buffered HSTs. We're now passing through Stevenage Station. If for any reason that the DVT develops a fault whilst it's in service during the day, it can still be propelled back to London using the infamous blunt end cab of the Class 91. Though when running in this mode, the speed of the train is restricted to 110 miles an hour due to the way the aerodynamics work. I've just powered off for an upcoming neutral section. And we've just regained power again. I think this is a Nebworth station. We're now on the infamous Welling bottleneck, where momentarily the East Coast Main Line squeezes down from 4 to 2 tracks. I'm just going to change the speed set back to 115 miles an hour. And this is Welling North Station. And it's at this point that the East Coast main line starts to widen back out again as we approach Welwyn Garden City Station. And at Welwyn Garden City, the type of traction will start to get even more interesting as we start to encounter the dual voltage class 313 electric multiple units, which run trains to Moorgate. Just going to shut the power off again for the next neutral section. On the main line that use 25, on the lines that use 25 kilovolt overhead wires as their source of power, neutral sections are placed I think every 10 to 15 miles, and they are used to split the line up into sections. So if there's a problem in one section, that can be turned off whilst the other sections can still operate to some degree. And we've just regained power, so I can now apply power back again. In fact, I'm just going to have to cut the power off now, as the speed is now decreasing down to 100 miles an hour. Just going to change the speed set as well accordingly. As we get closer to the capital, the line speed will gradually drop down. And now we're applying power and get us back up to line speed. I really do like the sound of the wheels on the track from the DVT. It sounds very, I'd like to say, very reminiscent of the TIE fighters in the Star Wars movies, and more a bit like the Pendolinos as well when they're tilting in the corners. I believe Armstrong Powerhouse have done a really good job in making these sounds as realistic as possible. And it just makes the Class 91 train set more enjoyable to drive. So another neutral section coming up, but our speed is also dropping down to 95 miles an hour. So I'm just going to bring the train down to that speed now. Also drop down the speed set down to that speed as well. On the left is a Bounds Green depot where the Class 91 train sets are stabled and maintained. I also apologise for the lag that we're getting in this area. Obviously, as we get closer to London, there's more structures for the game to render. And at the moment, Train Simulator is struggling a little bit, especially with its 4 GB worth of memory. However, during the time that I didn't have a computer, during August, Dovetail Games announced that the next version of Train Simulator 2019, will finally be getting its upgrade to 64-bit, and what that means is that Train Simulator will be able to utilise all the random access memory of your computer. So at the moment it's limited to about 4 gigabytes of memory. However, in my computer, for example, it'll be able to use the 16 gigabytes of memory. And talking there, I've just got a little bit too distracted, but we're now down to 90 miles an hour. At the next signal we're going to be going down to 80 miles an hour, so I'm going to slow down for that now. And in fact shortly after that we're dropping down to 65 miles an hour, so just going to have to slow the train down now. I'm not going to bother playing around with a speed set now, as we've got a couple more big speed changes and I can handle it better without worrying about the speed set. Just passed a morp of board for 45 miles an hour, so I'm going to start to slow down for that in a moment. In fact, we're on a downward gradient all the way into King's Cross now, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on train speed here. And in a moment I'm going to have to start slowing down for a drop down to 15 miles an hour. So I'm going to start doing that now. And we now have a single yellow with route indication into platform 1 at King's Cross. So I'm just going to slow right down, as I think the next signal here is displaying a red aspect. It will probably clear once we get down to a slow enough speed. I think this signal, this particular signal, is an approach control 1. And the signal here is on the ground and is displaying 2 white lights, which means we are able to proceed into platform 1 at King's Cross. Just getting the speed of the train right down to 10 miles an hour, just in anticipation of the TPWS. if we were to do more than the permitted speed for TPWS, the train's brakes would automatically be applied. So in addition to the automatic warning system, it's another way of safeguarding trains. And King's Cross is actually unique in the fact that it has a platform 0, which is used by a certain number of trains throughout the day. And here we are at King's Cross, so I'm just going to shut the train down now. And we'll just wait for the scenario to clear, and we'll see how we did. Okay, it's said scenario incomplete. Not too sure why it said that, but I have completed this in a previous run of this scenario. I did complete it properly and got the green tick, so I'm not too sure why it failed us there. The game penalised us 22 times for speeding. 21 of those times was due to the game incorrectly penalising us. So that's not too bad going. But other than that, a very enjoyable scenario. And if you haven't already, I'd definitely recommend you pick up the Class 91 Enhancement Pack from Armstrong Powerhouse if you haven't already done so. It is a really good pack, and it really enhances the experience of the Class 91. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you next time with another train simulator video very soon. So thank you very much for watching, and take care.